Transformers 1 managed to keep a strong Megatron character connection in place despite changing elements of the franchise's lore surrounding it. Changes to Transformers' history were not uncommon in the 2024 movie, from Transformers 1's new Optimus Prime origin story to the further fleshed out infrastructure of Icon City. Not only these, but other elements of the classic franchise were slightly altered in order to craft a new set of stories based on its characters, as evident by the time of Transformers 1's ending. Although Transformers 1's post-credit scene did tease the Autobot-Decepticon war that Transformer fans have come to know, there is still a ways the future could be different from what has come before. That said, Transformers 1 had many Easter egg and references to prove it was not completely devoid of connections to the franchise at large. This allowed the film to be enjoyable for those familiar with Transformers, as well as a stepping-on point for new audiences. One of the ways Transformers 1 rode this line was through Megatron, keeping a common franchise connection for his character with some big changes. The character connection in question is Megatronus Prime's inspiration of D16, who later becomes Megatron. The film makes clear from its early scenes how much D16 aspires to be like Megatronus, one of Transformers 1's iconic primes. In the film's final act, this inspiration becomes much more active in D16's transformation into Megatron when the young Cybertronian retrieves Megatronus Prime's transformation cog. Without these cogs, not all Cybertronians can transform in Transformers 1, yet D16 finds a solution. While he receives a T-cog earlier in the movie from Alpha Trion, D16 manages to take possession of Megatronus Primes from Sentinel Prime. This solidifies not only D16's transformation into the Transformers villain Megatron, but also the connection between D16 and Megatronus Prime. The link between these two characters has long been part of Transformers stories, with Transformers 1's T-cog element finding a clever way to embed it into the new section of the universe. As alluded to, Megatron's connection to Megatronus Prime in Transformers 1 is not without its changes in lore. In most iterations of the characters, Megatronus eventually becomes corrupted into the Fallen, one of the franchise's most prominent villains. The Fallen appeared in the live-action Transformers movie timeline among several other versions, be it comic books or animated shows. In each of these stories, the Fallen was once Megatronus Prime who fell into darkness. After this, the Fallen tends to become a high-ranking member of the Decepticons, explaining his connection to Megatron in most iterations of Transformers. Transformers 1, however, takes a slightly different route. Thanks to the film's exploration of Megatron as D16, it shows him when he was a friend of Orion Pax, later Optimus Prime, and actually inspired by the Primes. The big lore change about Transformers 1 is that Megatronus Prime never became the Fallen, instead dying a hero when Sentinel betrayed the Primes. Rather than have D16 be inspired by the Fallen and the Decepticons, he was simply inspired by Megatronus Prime. The latter character was often described as the strongest of the Elder Primes, greatly influencing why D16 revered him so much. Although Megatronus dying before becoming the Fallen is a big lore change in Transformers 1, the film still found a way to have a connection between him and D16. Despite not becoming the Fallen in Transformers 1's timeline, Megatronus Prime still influenced D16's downfall into Megatron. This came in the form of the aforementioned plot point that saw D16 steal Megatronus Prime's T-cog from Sentinel Prime. D16 was already walking a dark path before this point in Transformers 1's story, but this obtainment of Megatronus's cog saw his transition into Megatron set in stone. Given that D16 already thought of Megatronus Prime as the strongest of the Primes, the T-cog somewhat imbued D16 with that same strength. Dubbing himself as Megatron, the villain then used that strength to amplify his already growing bloodlust and need for revenge, killing Sentinel Prime and turning against Orion Pax. This explains how D16 became Megatron in Transformers 1, stemming from the cleverly changed connection the character has to Megatronus Prime in the franchise's newest edition.